So you end up with a spreadsheet with, 200 or 300 actions, and you need to shrink it to this small to be able to see what the heck's going on. And, this is kind of a big aha moment for me. I'm the project manager and the lead in my company for this project for our customer. And I was unwilling to invest the mental energy to dig into this spreadsheet so I could figure out what was going on and make it useful. Like I call it the barriers to entry. And we actually tried sending this out to members of the project team and, filter on column K for your name, and then filter on the next column for the prioritized risks, and then update it with your actions. And quickly learned that, group sending a spreadsheet to 15 people and expecting them to read it, let alone update it, is a fallacy. We did, push Excel to, I don't want to say the limits. I'm sure there's things people could do that are cooler than this, but one of the neat things we did in Excel on the bottom left here was our heat map trend. And this was really important to our customer, which is what's our risk profile when we started? And then every month, are we driving down risk? So, obviously red is the worst risks and green are the still risks, but the least worst risks. And as you close risks, we get to be hash mark green instead of solid green. So, you could see we were being effective in driving risk down, but we were still bogged down in Excel hell, I'll call it, to make the system work. And then I remembered, I don't know, a year ago or how long ago, that my friends at Safran had this cool tool called Safran Risk Manager. And I said, maybe we should look at that.
The Excel tool that we were leveraging contained a lot of quality data. We were confident in how the primary schedule risk drivers that we had identified and that were being assessed by the team, but it really was a monster of a spreadsheet. And so we started exploring Safran Risk Manager as a possible solution to simplify things. The overall goal was to get something that wouldn't alienate our own risk users, because it in effect was. At the same time, we also wanted something that would ease management and maintenance, give us better configuration and workflow control, and also expand upon some of those basic reporting capabilities that Sam had flashed up in the last slide. So what I'm going to do is just kind of highlight some of the qualitative analysis features within Safran Risk Manager that we were leveraging and that were viewed as kind of net improvements over that Excel iteration of the tool, and also were kind of flagged by our customer as things that they liked. Caveat that by saying this is not everything that Safran Risk Manager can do, and if you are curious, I would point you to Mark to get some more information, because it really is a savvy management tool. So right off the bat, one of the things that the client really liked was the enhanced visibility that you have across multiple projects. So this is just a snapshot of the project view within Safran Risk Manager. And what it does is just give you kind of macro level data for individual projects that you're entering into the system. So we were looking ahead here and thinking, hey, this project we're working on with the client, that's just one. And they've got an entire portfolio. So there's really an enterprise network, an enterprise management aspect that leveraging Safran Risk Manager could really bring some value to. This gives us the ability to see macro level risk exposure, but also provides us deep dive capability into individual projects, individual risk events. Being able to have everything in a consolidated database allows us to identify things like common cause risk drivers, and more importantly, track implementation of those mitigation actions across all of the impacted projects. So, just imagining trying to incorporate multiple projects into our Excel-based tool gives me a migraine just thinking about it. Not shown on this slide is the ability to create individual users aligned with the overall organizational breakdown structure. And those users can be customized with individual permissions in line with the project risk management plan. They can have as much or as little access as we think is necessary. So, right off the bat, as we started migrating things over and evaluating the functionality of Safran Risk Manager, we realized that this is an organizational framework that's much more navigable than we had previously. If you can go to the next slide, please, Sam. What you're seeing here, this is the risk register tool. There's not too much difference, specifically in the data, I'll call the core data, between this and what we had in Excel. We have the ability to bring all of our risk register fields from Excel into Safran Risk Manager. But the main improvement within this interface is the ease of use with the search, filter, and grouping functionality. So in the upper right-hand corner, I'll apologize, it's hard to see, but there's a search button, and that's a toolbar that kind of can provide keyword filtering on all of the indexed data within the risk register. There's a global filter option as well, and you can reorganize and show and hide columns with the click of a mouse, something that takes 20 clicks of the mouse in Excel. So it's a more usable general interface for trying to find, I'll say, individual risk events that may be applicable to you. You can filter in with single selections instead of multiple columns. I'll note that Excel does carry some of the same functionality, but it's harder to navigate. There was some front-end effort involved with getting this risk register fully populated and migrated over, and I think that was where we were in the project evolution. We were trying to stand up a risk program right before construction was starting, which is not a place you want to be. And I'll point out that this tool is, I think, a really value-added thing to have at the risk identification phase early on. If we had this during the risk workshop, we could have set all our users up. They could have entered in their own individual risk events. We could scrub them. They're in the consolidated database. Trying to migrate everything over midstream was difficult because we still had to walk through the manual approval process for all of the risks that had already been identified. But that also speaks to the configuration control that's embedded within the system. So we have a lot more, I'll call it, control over the actual database and ensure that we're not changing things that don't want to be changed. Let's see. Next slide, please, Sam. This here just shows some of the dashboard reporting features that we leveraged for the project. Again, this is not reflective of every type of report that you can pull out of the software, but for the qualitative data that we were looking at, these are the ones that were applicable. You're not seeing a lot. You'll see a lot of the usual suspects. We've got our 5x5 heat map, risk scoring matrix, top 5 table, similar to a tornado chart without the plot, some bar charts for basic risk metric data. So nothing too groundbreaking, but it's important to note that these are still good tools to track, and maintaining visibility on your overall risk exposure and key drivers is important to ensure that there's visibility into those key priorities. You might not have the underlying quantitative data to identify probabilistic contributions to an overall contingency, but it's enough to keep people focused on what's important to complete the project on time. And for this specific project, schedule risk was the primary concern. The heat map feature is kind of cool. It's fully customizable. So we were able to create the color coding and scoring thresholds in line with the qualitative assessment criteria that were presented on I think it was slide 9. And one of the things that our client really liked about this dashboard is all of those data points are live linked to the individual data. So if this was live in the software instead of a screenshot, you could hover your mouse over a dot, click on the dot, and it takes you to a pop-up window right to the individual risk event. So, this is pretty emblematic of the macro view with dive down capability that we were really looking for. Next slide, please, Sam. So, Safran Risk Manager was able to get us, I'll say, about 90% of what we were looking for in terms of that enhanced usability, visibility, configuration control. But because we were working with qualitative data only, we could only leverage a small portion of the built-in reporting tools. And what you're seeing on this slide is the type of trending reports that were available for qualitative inputs. And while useful, it's not the level of fidelity that we wanted to be able to report on to our client. So, we could see things like open risks past the trigger date or past due actions, but, not too much past that with just our 1 to 5 scoring data. And one of the key functions that we wanted to be able to report on was trending data, like Sam discussed earlier. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So in order to do that, we tried to leverage the API integration functionality of Safran Risk Manager. And for those of you who aren't familiar, API stands for Application Programming Interface. This is basically a way to integrate the data that we're carrying within the Safran Risk database into other applications like Microsoft Power BI. Power BI is a standard data visualization tool. And essentially, we can take all of the fields within Safran Risk Manager, use the API handshake, live link them to our Power BI dashboard, and ensure that we only have to build the plots that we need, and we only have to maintain our database in one location. We didn't want to create a second monster from after we had slayed the first from our monster spreadsheet. For this project, we were also leveraging Procore, which is a construction management set of tools, and that's also API enabled. So since all of these tools can basically speak the same language, we get to link all of this data together. We can build cross-cutting reports and ultimately enhance the team's ability to manage the job. Next slide, please. So these last 2 slides I have, these are just snapshots of some of the supplemental dashboards that we linked to the project through Power BI. The key features that I'll point out here are the flexibility. Is we wanted to filter out sets of risks by things like RBS category, functional area, severity level, risk owner, and be able to see the resulting trending data and the overall breakdown. So what this really allows us to do is have a quick and easy way to highlight the key risk pinch points. Where are the highest number or the most critical, who owns the most critical risks on the project? In this example, we probably don't want to be Mr. Fournier because he's got 47 risks assigned to him. If I'm the manager here, I want to make sure that I'm assigning the appropriate resources available so we can start buying down these high number of risks within that functional area. I want to go to Mr. Ulavikas and make sure that he's got the management, the resources he needs because he's got the crisis level risks.